people, if you are looking for a quality, vintage, modern, classic football shirt, get yourself over to okjersey.com. Selling shirts for around £15 and shipping to Europe with orders over £50. Make sure you treat yourself. Use the discount code BBN for 8% discount. Get yourself a new modern vintage Everton shirt. Treat yourself to something weird and wonderful. Treat yourself to a kid's kit, whatever you want. Make sure you get yourself over to OK Jersey. Sizing is literally on the website, just there. The price ranges are there. The sizing is there. You can pick your patches, your standards, your player numbers, the works. Treat yourself. Get yourself over to okjersey.com.
Yes, people, what is going on, everyone? It's Mike, it's John back again, and this is your news show with little news. I mean, it's absolutely tremendous. John has just sent me something. I haven't read it. I can't read it because I'm recording off my phone today. So, John, to be honest, I wanted to talk about all these links that are starting to happen. We've been linked with a player from Bologna. We've been linked with Troy Parrott. We've been linked with different midfielders. We've been linked with a right back yesterday. So I wanted to ask you, instead of just throwing names out there, what are the obvious positions you want to strengthen in January? And realistically, what's your sort of expectations on January? You know, loans, signings, money. Where's your head at?
I think the priorities are striker. We need goals. We've said that many times on here. You know, we've cried out for a right back and probably covered at left back because obviously Adam Asnu's probably not ready to play in the Premier League yet. I think that's pretty obvious. But for me, mate, we need a striker. What I said you there, we've been linked with a January move for Juventus striker Dusan Vlahovic or whatever his name is. Now, apparently he's not going to cost a lot of money. Now, I haven't read the full article. I've sent it to you. But he's the sort of person that if we could get in, he knows where the goal is, mate. And I think it's obvious for me and probably for you and a lot of Everton fans, the main issue is scoring goals, you know. And I think if we have the opportunity to go out and put all our eggs in one basket, I think all them eggs are going to be aiming towards a striker. Yes, we've got Seamus Coleman, who's done well on the international break. We've got Jake O'Brien. Yes, he is injured, but he can play at right back. We've also got Jimmy Garner, who, for me, if you're looking for a fullback who will perform for you week in, week out, and give you 100% and make us Everton fans feel confident that he can do a job, it's probably James Garner. So if there's a bit of money left, or if we bring a loan striker in and there is money to spend, then I do think that's probably where the money goes at a fullback. You know, not big money, but just cover more than anything. But I think it's detrimental, mate, that we bring a striker in. And you know, when you look at where we are in the league table and some of the performances we've put in this season, you know, we were in the game for nearly an hour against City. We give Liverpool a game. We've beat Fulham with a good performance. We went away to Sunderland and put a good performance in for an hour. It makes you wonder, doesn't it, you know, where we are in the Premier League if we had that striker, because, you know, you speak about the XG quite a lot. And there's been certain games this season where Everton's XG hasn't been that bad, expected goals. It's just that we've got a striker who's come into the Premier League and is still finding his feet. And you've also got a striker in Beto who's never going to be prolific. So we need a striker, mate. And if we don't get that striker over the line, then I think it's just going to be a season of consolidation into the Premier League. I think if we can bring a striker in, I'm not saying we're going to finish in the European spots, but I think if we can add goals to this team with what we've already got, I think the league table come the end of the season will look a lot better.
Yeah, it's weird, really, because so this weekend, obviously, Everton playing Monday. Watch along. We will be doing a watch along, guys, so make sure you come over to Blue Boys Network and watch that. And I've watched a few of the games this weekend. You know, I watched Villa beat Leeds earlier. I'm currently literally just opposite me is the Arsenal Tottenham game. And I watched a few games yesterday, and the one thing that always stands out for me is how quick other teams play. Like, I'm looking at this Tottenham team, which, don't get me wrong, it's different from the team that finished 17th last season. But so many people move the ball quickly and move the ball through the channels quickly, and I sort of don't always feel like Everton do that. So as much as I absolutely agree that we need, a striker, and Dusan Vlahovic is, I mean, there was a few seasons ago he was being linked with Arsenal for 80, 90 million. So, he's a hell of a striker. It's actually funny because on FIFA, there was actually a swap deal proposed with Iliman Ndiaye for him and 5 million quid in Everton's favour. So it's funny that he's been linked with us. But for me, I want to see a striker, but I want to see us. If we're going to sign players in January, I want to see players with real pace, like real pace. Like every single player I've looked at and that we've signed, I don't think pace is one of their biggest attributes. And, when you look at teams like Bournemouth, for example, like Forest, like Villa, pace is kind of their core quality throughout that team. They're really quick, and I just feel like it's something Everton lack. You can't address that in the January transfer window, and it's probably more like an ethos change in terms of a manager. But every time I look at these other games this weekend, I've been looking at certain moments and going, I wish Everton could do that. I wish Everton could do that so quickly. It's a bit frustrating, really.
I think a lot of that is down to what you've got up front. Because if you look at the teams that you've just mentioned, who move the ball fast, who get the ball into dangerous areas, they've got players there who can hurt the opposition. When you've got the likes of Beto and Barry, who again is still finding his feet, as I said, I think that makes Everton play slower. Now, if we had a decent striker up front, I do think we'd move the ball quicker. Yes, going back to what you said about pace. I'm not being funny, mate. You look at Everton over the past couple of years, for a good few years, how many players have we had who've had pace? And we're not blessed with that. But I think what overrides that is when you've got someone like Ndiaye with the skill he's got, with how good he is on the ball. When you're that good on the ball, mate, you don't need pace. You just don't need pace. Same as Jack Grealish. Jack Grealish isn't blessed with pace, but his close ball control, his tendency to get away from players, if he's got 2 or 3 players around him, he can still make something happen. Same as Ndiaye when you look at the goal against Sunderland. He didn't go past the Sunderland players with pace. He went past the Sunderland players with skill. And I think Everton are more blessed with skillful players than what they are pacey players. Pace does need adding to the squad. I think it goes without saying. You're right. You've hit the nail on the head. Everton do move the ball slow. We don't get at the opposition with pace. But I think we sort of counteract that with the quality we've got with certain players on the ball.
Yeah. I don't disagree. It's like I was looking at some of our old signings and players that haven't quite made it. And, I was looking at players like Moise Kean, for example. He come in. He was relatively quick, but now he's scoring goals. And then I looked at the left-hand side, and we've had Nelson Konku, we've had Thierry Small, and I text you talking about the difference between Mikalenko and those two players. And, Thierry Small's absolutely ripping it up at Preston. And Nelson Konku, by all accounts, is doing a phenomenal job, and he's playing further forward, like me and you called for about 4 years ago, before we let him go. So, when you sit there and you think, there's been players that Everton have had, or there's been players that maybe didn't get the right opportunity, or there's been moments and situations under certain managers where you would have liked to have seen these players get a chance, and you just don't know where Everton would be now in terms of what they'd actually have and the ability to manipulate a ball, because you single out Iliman Ndiaye and probably Jack Grealish, but they're the two. James Garner has got a skill in him, to be fair. I've seen him. He's got a lovely touch, and he's got the ability to turn nicely. But at other times, there isn't many players that have got that low centre of gravity to carry a ball past people. And I think for me, I think when I look at this Everton team, it's obvious it needs a striker. It's obvious it needs a left back. It's obvious it needs a right back. I could possibly argue it needs a centre half as well, if I'm being brutally honest. But I think if Everton are to move forward and progress, as horrible as it sounds, I feel like the whole ethos of this team has got to change, and that includes the midfield. It's such a huge job, having watched this weekend. It feels like it's something that's not just 1, 2 or 3 seasons away. It looks like it's something that might be 4, 5, 6 seasons away.
Well, if you look, David Moyes said this the other day in his press conference, it didn't happen overnight, and it practically took him 3/4 of his first tenure at Everton to probably get the team that he wanted, and there were bargain buys. We did mix it up. We did have a bit of pace. We had a bit of skill. We had a bit of tenacity. When you look at this Everton team, I don't think we've got all three. We haven't got all three in our midfield, but we said on here the other night, Michael, I think in 12 months, 2 years, 3 seasons, it's going to look completely different. The midfield's going to look completely different. And we threw Rolling, he's one for the future. We've brought Kieran Dewsbury all in, Tim, hopefully Illiman and Dye. But I do think for me, the whole ethos and the way Everton will play will boil down to what sort of striker Everton get. I think bringing a striker in will either change the formation, change the setup, change the tactics, change the team selections, and the way Everton play. If we've got a focal point up front, like a top focal point, and it's hard to attract them players when you have been in the situation Everton have the last couple of years. We're fighting relegation battles and not being in Europe and stuff like that. It is hard, and I think David Moyes now, for me, before, if he sees this contract out, before he leaves, I think he will leave Everton in a much better position than what he found us. I do think he'll bring players in for the future, added to what he's already brought in for the future. But I think it will look a lot better. We've seen what David Moyes can do, Michael, with his first tenure, bargain buys. And listen, the likes of your Tim Cahill's, your Mikel Artetas, your Leighton Baines, they're hard to come by these days. And you do have to pay big bucks for big top quality. And we've said it. When you spend £30 million on a striker, you get a £30 million striker. And that is the problem Everton have got. Yes, it's all right having all the skill from Ndiaye. It's all right having all the skill from Jack Grealish, and Kieran Dewsbury all added to that. James Garner's capable of putting a ball through. We've seen that. But you need something up top. So going back to what you asked before, I think it's detrimental, mate, that Everton bring a decent striker in January.
Yeah, I just want to correct just for sheer banter, but it's not detrimental.
Detrimental. Well, people know what it meant.
The other thing I want to mention, but Arsenal have just gone 1 up. The other thing I want to mention is you brought it on quite nicely to David Moyes. What if we expect David Moyes to see out his contract? Yeah.
Well,
I don't think Everton go down, and I personally don't see the point of not just. I don't see the point in changing anything dramatic in terms of the manager, because we're not going down, and I just don't. But that's just my opinion.
Got to win more games, though, mate.
It does, but the question I've got is what type of manager would you want? Because, as I say, I've looked at the stars of football a lot this weekend, and for the first time in a long time, I did sit there thinking it feels a bit out of date.
Mate, well, it is, and you get what when you employ an older manager. We've seen it with Rafa Benitez when he come in. We've seen it with Sean Dyche, dinosaur managers. In a way, and this isn't a pop at David Moyes, because David Moyes has been brilliant for Everton Football Club, even though if he does see his contract out in 13 years, he didn't win us a trophy. If he don't win nothing this tenure, 13 years without a trophy is a long time. But we need a young up-and-coming manager, mate. Now, there's two who strike me straight away, which is the Bournemouth manager, Areola. I think he's fantastic, mate. Fantastic. And Glasner, Oliver Glasner at Crystal Palace. When you look at the Premier League now, mate, and you look at teams that are doing well, the youngish managers, apart from obviously Pep. I mean, Pep's not old, but if you look what Bournemouth have done, if you look what Crystal Palace have done, I think Thomas Frank will do a good job at Tottenham. Mikel Arteta at Arsenal. Yes, he does come across as a bottle job, but I actually think they win the league this year. I think Everton need to stop going now for managers with a dated profile, if I can say that. And that's no dig at David Moyes. David Moyes was the best man for the job when Everton needed him. He come in, he done a fantastic job when he first come through the door for the second time. To the end of the season, Everton done really well. He has had a little bit of a blip this season, in my opinion. I think it was 1 win and 8 and 1 win and 9. It's not great. Don't care if it's David Moyes. Don't care if it's Pep Guardiola. 1 win in 9 is not good enough. But I think if David Moyes had a striker at his disposal, mate, I reckon you could add 6 or 7 points to Everton's tally. So, was Tierno Barria's signing? I don't know. Can David Moyes work with? It seems there's like a committee of people now. We've got the fella from Man United. We've got the fella from Leeds. David Moyes apparently has more of a say in transfers. Does that work? I don't know. I really don't know. Everton did get rid of the director of football title. But I just think, mate, you need to go young, and I think you need new ideas, not dated ideas. And I do feel sometimes with David Moyes, with his substitutions, his in-game management, we've said it on here many times, Michael, and people probably will agree, his in-game management, his in-game substitutions, his in-game tactics do leave a lot to be desired.
So, in terms of young and hungry, then, it's Frank Lampard, then, yeah?
Well, I'm not being funny, mate. He's pulling up all kinds of trees at Coventry, isn't he? But listen, maybe Coventry is his level, and listen, Frank Lampard managed Chelsea, and I think he was through under the bus a bit, because in that season that he managed Chelsea, I think he brought about 12 players in. Now, and I know it takes a long time for 12 players to gel. We're seeing it across the park with the shit show that is. They brought all kinds of players in. So it does take time. It would have been interesting to see what Frank Lampard would have done in a second season with all them new faces that got brought into Chelsea. But listen, he's doing a fantastic job at Coventry. Is he a Premier League manager? That remains to be seen. But if he carries on doing things at Coventry, then I think he'll get another chance in the Premier League. I'm not saying it'll be with Everton, but I think there will be certain teams out there who will look at him to see if he is a Premier League manager.
Yeah, I think that's fair, John. I think that's very, very fair. I think it's interesting. You could argue there's a young, hungry manager at Forest. Would we say that? I mean, that wasn't a bad performance by Forest yesterday, was it? Eh?
Wasn't a bad performance, but I'll be honest with you, mate. I think anyone can beat Liverpool at the minute.
Yeah, apart from us.
Yeah, but they went shit when we played them.
Yeah.
I'm not being funny, mate. I actually think if Everton played Liverpool tomorrow, I think we'd beat them.
Yeah, they were very poor yesterday, I must say. So.
Mate, it's the first time since 1965 they've lost 2 3-0 games on the run.
Yeah.
£500 million spent, mate. £500 million. Should have just kept Luis Diaz, mate, and all Klopp's team.
Well, Tottenham have just gone 2-0 down to Arsenal, so I think that game's over as well.
In the league this year, and Arteta has been a bottle job, but City will be there and thereabouts. City are fantastic after Christmas. We all know that. Very rare they lose. I think it's going to be a straight fight between Arsenal and City, in my opinion. I don't think anyone will get close to them top two.
Yeah, Agreed. Right, look, we will leave it there. Make sure you come and watch the watch long tomorrow. It's going to be fantastic. It's Everton against Manchester United at Old Trafford. Really, really tough game. 7:45 we will be going live for the 8 o'clock kickoff. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe, and we will see you soon. Peace.